In what felt like the blink of an eye, a single event has spiraled into a massive conflict spreading across the entire Middle East, pulling in global powers and threatening to boil over. So we're going to break down exactly how this happened, step by step.
It all comes back to one single moment, one incident, totally shrouded in confusion and conflicting reports that became the spark in an absolute tinderbox. So the real question is, how did that one spark manage to ignite a fire that is now raging from the mountains of Lebanon all the way to the shores of the Persian Gulf? To really get it, we're going to follow the chain reaction. We'll start in Iraq, where the whole thing kicked off. Then we'll move to Iran's massive retaliation, see how the fight spilled over into Lebanon, and finally look at the economic chaos now that the Gulf itself is under attack. Okay, let's dive right in. Our story starts in the skies over Iraq, with an incident that put the entire region on a knife edge.
So here's what we know. A U.S. military refueling plane, a KC-135, goes down. But almost instantly, before anyone can even really investigate, two completely different stories about why it crashed start making the rounds.
And this is where things get really messy. On one side, you have the Islamic Resistance, which is basically an umbrella group for militias aligned with Iran. They immediately claim, "We shot it down." But on the other side, U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM, comes out and says, nope, it was not hostile fire, suggesting it was some kind of accident during a refueling operation.
Now, it's so important to remember this did not happen in a vacuum. The region was already simmering. U.S. bases were dealing with daily drone attacks. Both American and Israeli forces were hitting back. And it wasn't just them. Other foreign troops, even French forces, were being targeted. The battlefield was already active long before this plane ever went down.
So whatever the real story was behind that crash, it almost didn't matter. Because Iran's response was swift, it was massive, and it was not limited to just one place. First, they came out swinging with direct military force, unleashing a whole wave of coordinated attacks that stretched for hundreds and hundreds of miles. They called the operation True Promise, and it was a huge barrage of dozens of missiles and drones. And look at these targets. They were widespread and very strategic. Major Israeli cities, sites in the occupied Palestinian territories, and, this is key, U.S. bases in both Bahrain and Iraq. This was a very clear message about their reach and their willingness to hit both their main regional rival and the global superpower they see as responsible. And just in case the missiles weren't clear enough, the military action came with this chillingly direct message from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Yeah, that's not a suggestion, it's a flat-out ultimatum to American forces everywhere in the region. But Iran's retaliation wasn't just about military might. They also made a big move to squeeze the world's economy by hitting it where it hurts.
And this is where Iran has a ton of leverage, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow strip of water is a vital artery for global energy. A huge chunk of the world's oil and gas flows right through it. So by threatening to close it to ships that don't play by their rules, Iran is basically holding a piece of the world's energy supply hostage. The message is simple. Our safety is now tied to the safety of your energy. From there, the fire just kept spreading, spilling over another border and dragging Lebanon, a country already so deeply scarred by its own history, right into the middle of it all. And the human cost here has just been staggering. Israeli airstrikes have forced 800,000 people from their homes. And that's not just a number, That's entire communities just gone, lives completely thrown into chaos. You can just feel the desperation in these words from Lebanon's prime minister. He really captures the feeling of an entire nation being dragged into a fight that it wants no part of. This has put the Lebanese government in a truly impossible position. On one hand, they've officially declared Hezbollah's actions illegal, but in reality, Hezbollah just keeps firing rockets anyway. Meanwhile, Israel is threatening to invade Lebanon if those attacks don't stop, which leaves the government looking totally powerless, trapped right in the middle. And the battlefield just kept expanding, this time heading south, pulling in Gulf nations that had, for the most part, tried very hard to stay on the sidelines. And this is where we see a really critical shift. The attacks aren't just on military bases anymore. Now they're hitting oil facilities. They've struck Dubai International Airport, the busiest airport in the world. Kuwait Airport was hit, and civilians were actually injured. Even huge international banks like Citibank and HSBC had to suspend their operations. The conflict is now hitting the very heart of the region's economy. The sheer scale of this assault is just staggering. You've got the UAE knocking down 36 projectiles on its own. Saudi Arabia and Qatar have also intercepted a whole barrage of drones and missiles. What we're seeing is a sustained, high-tech aerial war being met with a really robust, high-tech defense.
So let's just step back for a second and see how all these different pieces connect to really get the full picture of a region that has been pushed right to the edge.
You can see the domino effect here, and it is incredibly fast. It starts with one disputed plane crash. Within days, Iran unleashes its retaliation. A little over a week later, Hezbollah opens up a whole new front from Lebanon. And just 2 days after that, the economic hubs in the Gulf are under fire. One event, 4 fronts, all escalating in about 2 weeks.
So, what are the big takeaways from all this? Well, first, it's proof that one little spark really can start a whole lot of fires. Second, this is a hybrid war, fought with missiles and with economic pressure. Third, and this is so critical, civilians are the ones bearing the brunt of this, from Beirut all the way to Kuwait. And finally, the fragile balance of the entire region is threatening to shatter, which has huge implications for the rest of the world.
And this all leaves us with a really unsettling reality. This conflict is no longer contained. You have powerful countries, global superpowers, and the world's energy supply all wrapped up in it. So the question we're all facing now is no longer if it will spread, but how in the world can it possibly be stopped?